What they observed at Gate 37. There was no security guard, no press entourage, no distinguishing markings other than the silent power in her stance, and her heels reverberated over the shiny terrazzo floor of Reagan National Airport in a pace that was both elegant and purposeful. It was 9:38 p.m. when 53-year-old Camille Hartley, the recently appointed director of the Federal Bureau of Investigation, returned from a classified briefing in Seattle. The air outside was still humid from the early summer months in Washington, D.C., and even inside the terminal, it seemed like the walls were perspiring. Camille moved like someone accustomed to negotiating the invisible corridors of power, someone who had spent a lifetime determining which words were important to say and which silences carried more weight. She wore a slate gray suit that was chosen for its purpose rather than for its style. Her dark shoulder-length hair was styled neatly back, and she carried a weathered leather briefcase in her left hand. The briefcase contained documents with clearance levels so high that most Americans were unaware they existed. As she passed Gate 37, she looked around the area instinctively rather than in a hurry, and that's when she noticed them. When Camille Hartley saw that look before it burned between her shoulder blades during meetings through security lines in Heil rooms, where her name tag read Director, their eyes still read suspicion. She heard them before she felt them excuse. "Me, ma'am." One of the two airport security officers, who were both white and in their mid-30s, nudged the other and nodded subtly in her direction near a vending kiosk. She didn't flinch or alter her gait, though. The taller one's accent was thick with rural Virginia, and she blinked when she said, "What description do you match?" The middle-aged black woman in a gray suit with a briefcase may be in possession of sensitive materials. Her voice was measured but firm. "Yes, is there a problem?" she asked. The taller one stepped forward, saying, "Ma'am, we're going to need to take a look inside that case." Her grip tightened and she said, "My name is Camille Hartley, and I'm a director of the FBI." The other said, my eyes resting just a little, too long on the briefcase in my hand, and Camille exhaled once lightly. "You mean I match the description of a federal employee heading home after a full day's work?" There was a brief but abrupt hush after that. She reached into her jacket and took out her government-issued credentials, complete with a photo-raised seal and a strip indicating her clearance level, without breaking eye contact. The officer didn't take it. Instead, he turned to his partner and laughed. "She believes that flashing a fake badge will work on us because people are starting to notice." Now a teenage girl wearing earbuds paused. A woman lowered her pace while pushing a pram. Someone took out a phone, and Camille calmly replied, "I'm not flashing anything. I'm following protocol and identifying myself. That's not your call tonight." The other officer then snapped, "We're taking you downtown. You can explain everything there." Camille didn't move, but her lips were pressed together. "Then, you called your supervisor or your Homeland Security liaison." Neither of them moved. "And she warned you not to touch her briefcase or reach for her hands where I can see them." The taller officer's voice cracked as he barked and they stepped in. She didn't fight, but she also didn't help them. The briefcase fell to the ground with a soft thud and the officers clipped on the cuffs. The crowd's phones rang, and one of them muttered, "You have the right to remain silent," as if even he knew the words didn't fit this moment. Camille stood with her eyes pinned forward, her wrist bound, and asked, "I've shown you my ID. I told you who I am. I asked you to verify my credentials. But you chose to believe your presumptions instead, and now the crowd was growing." A caretaker had stopped cleaning the area while a TSA agent was radioing, and then a voice could be heard on one officer's radio terminal: "B Security DHS incoming on site code 542 officers en route." The elder one swallowed high-priority personnel mismanagement. The cop halted, and his teammate muttered, "What's 542? Suddenly, Camille Hartley's name started to signify something. One police fumbled with the keys, uncuffing her as she stammered, something about merely protocol and rubbing her wrists. "You better hope your chain of command is more prepared than you are," she added, pulling her briefcase without their assistance. "What exactly is going on here?" a voice said, breaking the silence. The flesh beneath the cuffs was red and sore. A black man in his early 60s came forward. He had on a denim jacket, but his eyes were unclouded. A TSA supervisor approached a woman wearing Navy fatigues with a badge pinned to her chest and said, "Ma'am, we're sorry," quietly to Camille. "We weren't informed of any detention, so you don't need to apologize for their mistake," she said. "This woman claims to be the director of the FBI, and I know she is because I saw her testify last week on C-SPAN." "I complied," Camille said, and she went on louder so that the throng could hear me identify myself, present my credentials, and ask them to confirm that they turned down the TSA officer's request. Before anybody could react, "We'll need a report." A man observing from a distance whispered, "You thought she was just another black woman and nobody would notice," as two men in dark suits pushed their way through the crowd of DHS agents. Director Hartley, the lead agent, said, "I'm fine," but she responded, "They're not." Within minutes, everything had changed. Body cams had been requested, security footage had been taken, and the officers had been escorted out of the terminal. Later, as the black SUV drew away her helper, Camille sat quietly in the back. Marcia Duca, who was sitting next to her, was clearly frightened. "Are you okay?" "I'm exhausted." "Simply put," Camille replied as she looked at her wrists, which were still marked and already spinning up media control. "There are 3 video clips going around. Let them." The following morning, Camille responded as she stood behind a podium in the FBI's press room. "You've seen the footage," she said. "I was detained, I was handcuffed, I was disrespected. Not because of anything I did, but because of who they chose to see. I'm not seeking retribution, I'm asking for accountability. Not just from individuals, but also from the systems that train them to distrust before they verify." Reporters hung on every word, with one asking, "Do you believe racially?" "If I had a different face," she remarked, "I'd have been home 10 minutes after landing." She saw the police privately that afternoon. "No," she answered, displaying pictures from her career. "Were you handcuffed yesterday?" "They didn't talk. You don't have to be perfect," she added. "But if you wear a badge, you have to be better than your instincts." The FBI director confronts officers behind closed doors after they departed, changing the headlines. Her composure came to represent strength without show, rather than failure. "I used to believe that racism was something that only other people had, but now I know that it was in me as well. Your words didn't make me angry. Instead, they made me feel ashamed, and I will live the rest of my life as the man I believed I already was." Camille didn't look for interviews. She returned to work a week later and received a letter from a retired officer with no name. The 2 policemen were transferred. One joined the Bureau's new training program, while the other did not. Months later, Camille encountered a group of students at the Bureau, and one of them remarked, "Did you really take down 2 cops just by talking?" Camille stored the letter in her desk drawer. "No," she responded with a little smile. "I just made them see me." Her desk still held the briefcase that had struck the airport floor. Nothing had changed, but everything else had, and what had transpired at Gate 37 would never be forgotten. Not because of what had happened to her, but because of what she had done.